At Wind River Resort and Casino, we like to celebrate life's little moments. Oh, and the big ones too. Because around here, when you're completely in the moment, that's when the magic happens. Come in and find your moment at Wind River Resort and Casino.
Good morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Mike Krueger. Thank you so much for joining me here this morning. Hope you had a great, beautiful, wonderful Memorial Day weekend. 3-day weekend for many of you, but now it is back to reality. It is Tuesday morning, and many of you heading back to work, kids heading back to school, and we're starting off with a beautiful live shot out the Sundial Bridge in Reading, and looks like we've got a biker out there enjoying this cooler weather that we are experiencing in the morning hours. And that is something that we need to talk about, these cooler temperatures that we've been experiencing, because it's not going to be for much longer, folks. We actually have, look at this, some of the high temperatures. We're going to go into that here in just a second, but we need to talk about this. This is something that the National Weather Service issued yesterday afternoon, an extreme heat watch. You may recall this being called an excessive heat watch. They've kind of changed the wording. The Weather Service, people, I think it just gets too confusing. So when they start changing things up, it just gets even more confusing. But I digress. Extreme heat watch for Friday morning through Saturday evening. Now, temperatures, there's quite a spread there, right? Between 100 and 110. Now, basically 100 to 105 for the foothills, some of the higher elevations, and 105 to 110 for the valley locations. Now, again, this is not going to take effect until Friday, but we're going to notice quite an increase in our temperatures that we've seen here. I want to show you the temperatures we've seen so far for the month of May. And it's really been a bit of a roller coaster ride all month long. It's been up, then it's been back down. I mean, the warmest we've seen so far for the month of May has been 93 degrees. We saw that twice. The coolest was 30 degrees cooler at 63. And then, of course, kind of sprinkled in there a lot of 80s as well, even some 70s. Now, you can see over the Memorial Day weekend, we started Friday off, upper 80s, got a bit warmer on Saturday. You may have noticed that, right? But Sunday, Monday, gorgeous. Temperatures in the mid-80s. Boy, you can't beat that. Plenty of sunshine throughout the day. There were some high clouds that did move in on Sunday. That was one of the contributing factors. But those 80s that we saw yesterday and the day before, that's coming to an end today. In fact, we talk about Reading, the first time, or really the valley, the first time we'll see 100 degrees this year will be this month. It could be as early as today for some of us at the north end of the valley. But we'll get into all that a little bit later here. Let's take a look at Krueger's Quickcast here for your Tuesday, May 27th. Again, many of you are heading back to school. The kids are, and of course the adults heading back to work. Out the door this morning, temperatures will be around 70 in the valley, and really still fairly mild in the higher elevations. We do have a bit of a north breeze this morning for parts of the valley, and that's what's keeping those temperatures up a bit. But basically, upper 60s for Reading. The winds are not as strong and much calmer for places like Chico and Oroville and even Willows, where you got temperatures around 60, give or take. Upper 50s for Red Bluff. The wind's not as strong there either, or Corning, with a temperature of 63. But look at the mountains. We're above the 30s. We're mainly in the 40s. 42 degrees for Hayfork, 45 in Crescent City, and 50 right now in Eureka. So what's the reason for these warmer temperatures we're expecting, and really even some of the warmer temperatures we're seeing this morning? Well, kind of pretty easy to see here on the satellite image. You see how the clouds are moving up and over that ridge of high pressure. See that arc in the clouds? That arc pointing northward, that is. That's the ridge of high pressure over the western United States in general. Now, of course, a lot of that spilling over into northern Washington, and not to mention Canada, where they're seeing the rain. But for us, boy, we got the clear skies this morning, mainly sunny skies here through the afternoon as well. So what you'll notice here, see how the winds are about 10 miles per hour at the Reading Airport. But west of that, on the north and west side of the valley, you've got some greens approaching some yellows. So you're in the 20 to 20 mile an hour gusts or so that we're seeing there. And that's keeping those temperatures up a little bit here. But it's also coming from the north, and that tends to dry things out a little bit more as well. So for today, there you can see a little breezy this morning, especially over the west side of the valley. By midday, the winds actually subside, and then we go into the afternoon. Instead of a north wind, now we got more of a south wind kind of pushing on in. And then going into tomorrow morning, the winds will subside. I expect much calmer winds and probably cooler tomorrow morning as a result. Humidity levels this morning, they're starting to drop a little bit here. We take you into the afternoon, we're going to be in the single digits to even some lower teens. So still very dry out there, and still dry even for tomorrow morning, although we are seeing some recovery overnight in the 50 to 60% range. By 8 a.m., we're in the 35 to 45% range on average. And then, of course, those humidity levels will drop once again tomorrow afternoon into the single digits and low teens. What does that mean? Well, it's warming up. I'm talking about temperatures well into the 90s in the valley. We're talking about winds a little breezy at times and low humidity. That is going to elevate that fire weather risk. So that's something we need to kind of keep in mind here over the next few days. Now, looking at Futurecast, you can see any fog that we are seeing for the coast will quickly burn off. I expect a lot of sunshine even for the coast, but the afternoon clouds developing in the eastern mountains in Modoc County. There may be a stray sprinkle, maybe a light shower, but really, for all intents and purposes, you will be dry east of the valley today. But again, don't be surprised if you run into a stray sprinkle or a light shower. Then it dries out, it clears out here for tonight. Still some fog developing again for especially Humboldt Bay later tonight and tomorrow morning. Now, look at the temperature for Redding, 99. As you head southward, temperatures start to drop. And why is that? Well, we see the north winds that we're seeing this morning for the north end of the valley, south winds for the south end of the valley. Places like Chico, Willows, Oroville. You'll be looking at winds from the south all day. There's going to be a bit of a delta influence, a delta breeze influence, and that's going to keep those temperatures in the low 90s for places like Chico. But more of that north wind, dry, that will allow us to get into the upper 90s for the north end of the valley. And we're splitting hairs here. Could some of us briefly touch 100 degrees for the north end of the valley? Redding, Anderson, Cottonwood, Palo Cedro, maybe even the city of Shasta Lake? Sure. It's not out of the question, and that would be the first triple-digit heat we've seen so far for the year. But the bigger heat is not going to arrive until the end of the week and this upcoming weekend. So for tonight, temperatures are going to be in the low 60s. Winds, again, not as strong, so I think it'll be a little bit cooler, but still in the 40s and even the 50s for those higher elevations. And this is a sign of, it's not just the winds that can dictate what the temperature is going to do, but also just the warmer air in general, that ridge of high pressure. So that's going to allow our overnight lows to not be quite as cold either, but cooler than most likely this morning because the winds will be weaker. So look at this 7-day forecast. Now again, you'll notice for Redding, we're close to 100 today. We drop back down to the mid-90s on Wednesday, back up to the upper 90s Thursday, and then the big heat Friday, Saturday. Red Bluff, you're kind of seeing also that little dip on Wednesday and then another increase on Thursday. But for Chico, you're just gradually working your way up. By Thursday, mid to upper 90s, and then bigger heat by Friday and Saturday. Big drop, though. See that in the 80s by Monday. For the coast, you're looking at temperatures also increasing. I think some of the warmer spots on the coast during the heat wave will even reach some low 70s. Inland, we could see some triple-digit heat there as well, especially on Friday. That's also the case for Weaverville and Trinity County in general. But then we're seeing temperatures drop. And what's this? On Monday of next week, a chance for showers? Wow, okay, and then of course we're talking about that for Siskiyou, Modoc County, Eastern Mountains. Yes, Monday, and even more so, better chances look to be on Tuesday. Now, this is a long ways out, folks. We're going to be ironing out those details, but bottom line, we do expect to most likely see those cooler temperatures as a result, and we'll get into all of that and the reasons why it's going to cool off next week and what's going to happen for this week as well. Taking a look at some of the cameras out there this morning, there you can see Lake Oroville. Looks like we've got those clear skies out there this morning. Turning out to be a fairly mild start. A little breezy. You see that streamer blowing a little bit in the wind, so just a little breeze out there this morning, and you can kind of see that over the lake. It's these light breezes kind of creating those little ripples in the water. Main Street Chico on Highway 32. Looks like traffic is looking good there. You've got the sunny skies, those big long shadows with the low angle of the sun this morning, but that's the key. We've got those sunny skies out there this morning. Taking a look at Highway 44, this is looking at Sundial Bridge exit in Redding, Highway 44. You've got the sunny skies there. The camera in Crescent City is down this morning, but we can take a look at the camera that I put up. I love this camera. This is a knock on wood. I got to knock on some wood, maybe my head, I don't know. But before I even launched Weather NorCal, I talked to the owners of Elk Country in Trinidad, north of Trinidad. And I said, hey, I like to put a camera up. I wanted to do a camera network, which I'm still working on that. That's going to take some time. But this camera, it's connected to Wi-Fi. It's sitting up in the same spot here. I haven't touched it since I installed it. Actually, her tech guy installed it for me. He did a great job. But look at this. It still works, and I'm so excited. So we get this great view. And every once in a while, if we're lucky, we can see the elk hanging out there as well. So looks pretty good. All right, well, what do you say we get to our deeper dive forecast this morning? Before we get to that, we need to mention our sponsor, Wind River Resort and Casino. They have been the sponsor of Coffee with Krueger since day one, so thank you to them for their support. And we're going to be looking at, what they can bring us and what this sponsorship brings. And it brings us this show, right? And we can get interactive. If you have questions, anything of that nature, you can always do that. In fact, I forgot to turn that on. Let's get to it. Let's just do that one. Here we go. Okay, on view. Okay, good. Yeah, so you can make comments like Catherine, and Rachel, and Jay, and Ruth. Excuse me while I take a sip of my coffee. So at Wind River Resort and Casino, enjoy friendly service, a wide variety of specials and promotions, plus all of your favorite slots and table games. Once again, I want to thank Wind River for their support. Okay, so look at the temperatures. Yeah, a little breezy right now at the Reading Airport. That's why you're up to 67 degrees right now. But calmer winds allows the air to stay fairly calm and we don't mix things up. And as a result, we're looking at mid to upper 50s elsewhere in the valley. Now, you'll also notice in the higher elevations, 40s. Now, it's not very windy up there, but it's not just the winds that can keep those temperatures up, but it's also a ridge of high pressure. Warmer air in general is moving in, and that's going to impact our overnight lows as well. So we got a warming trend for the most part the rest of the week. Overall, when we look at the overall trend, it's ticking up for the rest of the week. Now, we're going to see some variations in there, especially for the north end of the valley, but the north end of the valley may touch 100 degrees today. That is not out of the question. Reading, Cottonwood, Anderson, Palisadro, City of Shasta Lake, possibly not out of the question. All right? But the bigger heat, that's going to be here by the end of the week, Friday, Saturday. That's the peak of this heat wave, but not as hot by Sunday. And we're going to see a big, temperatures are going to plummet by the time we go into early next week, which we'll get into that. We'll see that trend. Big area of low pressure, big area of high pressure. This is all pretty typical. As this digs to the south, this builds to the north, and we see that high pressure divert any cloud cover or any storms from moving over us, pushes up and over that ridge of high pressure. Think of a ridge of high pressure like a brick wall. These storms hit that brick wall, and they either push to the south if they can, otherwise they mainly ride up and over that ridge of high pressure. That's what we've got. Now the winds this morning, you see how the strongest winds are on Reading, but it's the west side of the valley, west of I-5, that we're seeing some of the strongest winds, and we're also seeing some gusty winds a little bit here for some of those foothill valleys, some of those mountain ridges, right? We're seeing some of that too, but for the most part, the winds are fairly calm elsewhere. So this morning, going into midday, the winds do die down. A little breezy at times, but not that bad. Now, it's a north wind this morning for the north end of the valley, but it shifts more from the south later this afternoon. Now, a lot of times you hear me say that the south winds tend to have a little bit more humidity associated with it, but not necessarily the case here with this series of kind of south winds. So we go into Wednesday morning, again, things are calming down a bit. We go into the afternoon, south wind, although you can see the northwest side here coming in from the northwest, but winds getting a little gusty at times for Wednesday afternoon. Thursday morning, north winds. We go into Thursday afternoon, north winds, 15, 20 miles per hour. So no major wind events, but strong enough that you get those north winds that sucks out a lot of that moisture in the atmosphere and sucks out a lot of the moisture in the fuels. So we're starting to see those fuels become more and more plentiful, unfortunately. So this morning, a little dry. It's getting even drier by this afternoon. There's 6 p.m. Hold on one second. There's a sponsor that I need to put in here. Give me 1 second. There we go. We have a sponsor. We need to make sure that we give our sponsors their time because they pay for it. And I appreciate that. So that's why I wanted to make sure we did that. Defensible space and brush removal. Give them a call if you need to get any defensible space, right? The works. All right, so again, let's talk about that fire weather risk again. So here we go. These numbers here are humidity. All right, so you can see how dry it's going to be here later this afternoon and evening. Oranges indicate you're getting in that high range. All right, so you've got dry, heat, and some winds as well. Now let's go into tomorrow morning. We see that relief. We get into the 50% range on average. That's good by the afternoon. All right, here we go again. We've got some oranges on the map indicating getting in that high fire weather risk again. And another thing to take note, we're also getting into that moderate to high range here for the north and east side, or north and east of the valley, that is. So it's drying out in the mountains. We're starting to see more fire weather risk as you head in some of those mountains as well. Thursday morning, things are looking pretty good. Thursday afternoon, once again, getting into the moderate to high range again. So as we go through the afternoon, we're going to be looking at mainly sunny skies even for the coast. But by the afternoon, there may be a stray sprinkle or light shower east of the valley. I don't have it in the forecast because, honestly, most of you will be dry. But as you're out and about here in east of the valley and even into Modoc County, if you see a stray sprinkle, a light shower, don't be surprised. It could happen. But it's going to be few and far between, if anything at all. And then by tomorrow morning, clear skies with the exception of some fog along the coast. Going to Wednesday afternoon, okay, see, yeah, maybe a stray sprinkle light shower. But again, taking it out of the forecast because most of you will be dry in Modoc County, few and far between. Still some fog kind of lingering a little bit here for tomorrow. And then we go into Thursday morning. All right, there's some of that fog along the coast. Going to midday on Thursday, you're still looking at dry conditions, maybe some fog still along the coast. All right, let's switch gears. We're going to talk about the temperatures and the roller coaster ride we've been dealing with here for the month of May so far. And let's talk about what we saw over the holiday weekend, right? Where we did see 87 on Friday as you kind of getting ready to take advantage of a 3-day weekend. But you started off the weekend with 93. You're like, oh, it's going to be hot for this holiday weekend. But as I had advertised and told you on Friday, it was going to cool off for Sunday and even yesterday on Memorial Day. Turned out to be absolutely gorgeous in the valley. In particular, these are temperatures for Redding. But what we're going to see here as we go through the rest of the week, temperatures ticking up and some big time heat right here as we wrap up the month of May. Here we go, right? So here's the extreme heat watch for Friday morning through Saturday evening. Temperatures between 100 and 110 degrees. 105 to 110 in the valley surrounding foothills and some of the higher elevations, 100 to 105. Now, this is the heat risk map. This is what the National Weather Service issues. This is an experimental platform that they're looking at here, but gives us a good idea of what we're looking at here. Now, what this does is this takes into account also, among many other things in the formula here, it takes into account what time of the year it is. And, you know, our normal high is in the upper 80s for this time of the year. So when we get well into the triple digits, it's kind of a bit of a shock to the system, you know, as we've been dealing with more of these mild temperatures, and then suddenly you're 105, 110. So this goes into the major category. And what that means is it affects anyone. And I mean that, anyone. This doesn't mean that just because you've lived here your whole life, that you are immune to the heat. You just know how to handle it better, right? You know that if you're starting to feel the impacts of the heat, you start drinking water, or you go into the air conditioning, you take a break, all right? You get that. But there are people who may be new to the area, who aren't used to this type of heat. The other people that are more susceptible to this heat are elderly, young children, pets, and even more so, people who may not have access to air conditioning. They may have a swamp cooler, but swamp coolers really can't handle this kind of heat. So if you don't have a proper way to stay cool or a proper way to hydrate, temperatures of 105 to 110 can be very dangerous. So that's why I get it. You're big, you're tough, you're strong, you can handle this heat. You're from this area. Yes, all right, good for you. However, there are many other people out there who can't. So the big, tough, strong people, you're out there. You know who you are. This is normal. I can handle this. Well, that's good. Good for you. But think about your neighbors. Think about the people around you who are more susceptible to this heat. Watch out for them. Bring them some water. Make sure they got a place to stay cool. All right? Watch out for your neighbors, your friends, your family. That's what we do here in Northern California, right? So I just wanted to illustrate here and kind of get on my high horse. Sometimes I do that. Saturday, you can see here, we're not seeing as much red there. So yeah, we are starting to see a slight of a downward trend here on Saturday, and especially going to Sunday. And again, this is something I want to stress and talk about. Because again, we talk about, I'm from here, this is here. All right, that's fine. Good, great for you. Okay, you can handle this heat. But nationwide, the number one the number one weather-related fatality, see this huge spike right here? What is that? Heat. Heat is the number one related death. This is kind of covering here. Let's take this out here. Here you can also see wind and rip currents as well. That's kind of in there. Those are pretty high here. And flood is the second highest. But heat is where it's at, folks. So just stating the facts, right? I'm not doing doom and gloom here. I'm not overhyping. I just want people to understand the implications of the heat and what it can do. All right? There you go. So let's talk about the setup, what's going on here. There you can see the ridge of high pressure that we see here that's building today. That's going to give us these warmer temperatures. That's shifting eastward, some cooler air riding to our north. That's going to give us a slight dip a little bit here. Should kind of keep those temperatures at bay. But it's down here that we watch. This is what's going to be building in. This is when we're talking the 100 to 110 degree temperatures. That's the peak on Friday. It shifts a little bit to the east on Saturday. Temperatures drop slightly, but still very hot. And then I've got my eyes up here because some cooler air by Monday. Look at this. Temperatures are plummeting by the time we get into Monday and especially Tuesday of next week. And on top of that, potential for showers. Now, it's mainly going to be the mountains, I think, on Monday. Tuesday, maybe even the valley getting caught up in some showers as well. Not out of the question. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. We're going to be ironing out those details as far as rain is concerned and even the temperatures. These temperatures are going to be changing as we get closer to next week. But you get the idea. We're seeing quite a drop. We're seeing quite a roller coaster ride. This is one of those Six Flags big time, get your heart going type of roller coaster ride, right? Because we're going down here, kind of mini, right up, and then, just put your arms up. You're going to be going down fast, right? 79 degrees by Tuesday, but then they start to kind of tick back up again by Wednesday and Thursday of next week. All right, here's a look at your lake levels, and here you can see just the minor drops and increases, nothing major, nothing alarming, and this is not alarming. This is awesome to see. We're still very good capacity, over 90% and close to 100% for Lake Oroville, as we have been for the last several weeks. Historical average still 110% or higher. Can't complain about the water levels right now. All right, so there you can see those wave heights. They are going to be dropping over the next 24 hours. So if you need to be on a small boat, looks like you're going to be in good shape. There are no small craft advisories. Those winds are expected to be out of the northwest at about 10 to 15 knots. There's a look at your waves, your high and your low tide for today, and your sunrise, and of course, now focusing on that sunset later on today. Here's your Trinity County neighborhood forecast. There's that uptick. 100 degrees or higher by Friday, Saturday, and then that big drop in our temperatures, and maybe even a chance for showers for Trinity County on Monday. As we head south of 299 today, I think we're going to be mainly in the 80s for places like Mad River, 87 degrees for Forest Glen, but Hayfork, a high of about 94 degrees. All right, here's a look at the south end of Humboldt County. 85, basically mid-80s from Miranda down to Garberville. Red Crest about 78, and Shelter Cove about 66. 68 in Fortuna, 65 in Ferndale, and right around 70 for Hydesville. 92 degrees in Hoopa, 94 in Willow Creek, 72 for Blue Lake, and 64 degrees. You're noticing that even the coast, you're seeing those warmer temperatures too. Instead of those upper 50s to around 60 we've seen for the last several weeks, now we're in the mid to upper 60s, and eventually during the peak of the heat wave, could even see some 70s in the forecast along the coast. 94 in Sayette Valley, 95 degrees for Horse Creek, And along the I-5 corridor, temperatures upper 80s. 80 to 7 degrees for Greenview, 86 for Callahan. You'll also notice that chance for showers on Monday for Siskiyou County. Better chances coming in on Tuesday of next week. 86 for Weed, 88 degrees for Mount Shasta City, 91 degrees for Dunsmuir. Also that chance for showers on Monday. We could see a sprinkle or two for, especially tomorrow actually, but maybe even today, otherwise dry. And then getting much warmer for Friday and Saturday. Your Eastern Mountains neighborhood forecast. For Bernie, I've got you dry all the way through the weekend, maybe a chance for some showers on Monday. That could continue on into your Tuesday of next week as well. Along around the lake, the perimeter of the lake, temperatures in the low to mid 80s, 85 for Chester, 81 degrees for East Shore and Westwood. And for the park, Lassen Volcanic National Park in the 60s, even some 70s in there as well. Take it to the south, Paradise, a high of 85 degrees, 86 in Greenville, and there's Portola with a high of about 80 degrees. Here's your Valley neighborhood forecast in the south, dry even through Monday, but there's a possibility that we can see some showers maybe by next Tuesday and cooler temperatures. Now, we have a bit of a south breeze here, especially as we go through the afternoon. That'll keep those temperatures mainly in the low to eventually working their way to the mid-90s for places like Corning. Chico, though, you'll see a high of about 92 today, gradually ticking upward, mid-90s, mid to upper 90s by Thursday, well over 100 by Friday, Saturday, and then temperatures plummeting by the beginning of next week. But here you can see here, City of Shasta Lake, down to Cottonwood, Palisadro, all of this area. If anyone sees 100 degrees, I wouldn't be surprised. But otherwise, mainly upper 90s there. 93 for Whiskeytown, and there you can see Lakehead about 94 degrees. There's your 7-day forecast for Redding. Those temperatures up, and maybe down a little bit for Wednesday, back up on Thursday, and there's the bigger heat. By the end of the week and this upcoming weekend, 96 degrees on Sunday and Monday, a high of about 88 degrees. So that is your forecast, folks. It's getting hot out there. All right, let's see what some of you are kind of checking in with this morning. Let's just kind of give everybody a little love and put them on the screen here. Say hello before we kind of wrap things up here this morning. Is there a reason why that's not showing up? Let's try this again. Send. There we go. No. Sometimes the buttons just aren't working. Coming in from Ruth Sanchez, it's going to be a hot one today. You bet, and even hotter. Later on this week, we've got Jay saying weather up in McLeod this weekend was wonderful. Well, I'm glad you had a good weekend. Hope you enjoyed it. It was some beautiful weather, and we got just a good old-fashioned morning from Rachel. I want to thank you for checking in this morning. Catherine Schmidt saying good morning. Our pasture grass has gone from green to brown in just a couple of days. Beware, fire season is here, 100%. You're starting to see more and more of those fuels begin to take shape in many parts of Northern California. We've got Krista saying, Catherine Schmidt, yes, we mowed our golden fields one last time on Sunday. Not a bad day. It wasn't too windy. Got to make sure it's not too windy out there if you're going to be mowing that grass. Gilbert Burns is saying hi. Hello to you as well. We've got James and Mandy Chappell saying have a great day. You too. And that's a great way to wrap up the show. Just have a great day. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to wrap it up. We're going to leave you with a couple of cameras. Until then, have a great Tuesday. And we will see you bright and early tomorrow morning on Coffee with Krueger at 6:30 in the morning. Have a good one, folks.